Your next promotion is just the beginning, and this podcast shows you how to get there. Welcome to episode number 186. This episode is coming out on the 4th of July, Independence Day in the United States, and I couldn't think of a better day to kick off officially Summer of Magic 2023. This is something that I created last year when I was on vacation, and I received an email from one of my one-on-one coaching clients who celebrated her promotion with me. And on top of that, she said, I was on vacation in Europe when I received the announcement. And I thought instantly, oh my gosh, this is exactly how it should be. We should all be able to celebrate promotions even while we're on vacation, because we have put a lot of magical ingredients in place. And now we just have to get out of our own way and let them happen. Let the magic happen. So in today's episode, I am sharing with you what I have learned over the past year about magic and how you can begin to use your own leadership magic on purpose. Let's get started. Welcome to Women Changing Leadership. I am your host, Stacy Mayer, and I teach you how to get promoted, get paid, and bring your whole self to the leadership table. I am on a mission to change organizations from the C-suite out, because women are the new face of leadership, and we are doing it on our terms. Hello, corporate badasses. Welcome to another episode of Women Changing Leadership. I'm your host, Stacy Mayer, and super excited, as always, to be here with you again this week. Today's episode is another one of those vulnerable episodes, and it's always so funny to me when I get a little nervous about recording a specific topic for you. I'm really usually very, very surprised. So this past week, I kicked off officially Summer of Magic 2023. And this year in particular, I'm expanding that outside of my leadership table community into the greater community at large, and really connecting with folks, everyone who gets promoted, celebrating promotions all across the world for the Summer of Magic 2023. And my goal is to celebrate 108 promotions this summer that all happen even while we're on vacation. And this is a really important factor to the Summer of Magic. Today's episode, though, I'm going to get into how the Summer of Magic started and my understanding of what magic is and how it has changed for me and evolved over the past year. And more importantly, how you can begin to use magic in your own professional development. And I'm going to give you 3 very specific tools in today's episode to really just get started on that right away. So the first thing that I want to say to you is I didn't plan on kicking off the Summer of Magic. In fact, I brought in a new marketing consultant to my business, and she was talking about the Summer of Magic last year, where we celebrated 13 promotions in 6 weeks. And like I said, this was just strictly inside of my leadership table community. And we had at that point, maybe 60 members, and we celebrated 13 promotions in a 6-week time period. So in terms of percentages, this is huge. I was just kind of sharing this with her off the cuff, and she was like, oh my gosh, that's a really big deal. Back up. And then she's like, are you going to do it again this summer? And I was like, well, we'll see. I'm not quite sure what it's going to be. And then now let's go back in time to what has been happening for me over the past year. In December of 2022, I actually hired a magic coach. Her name is Lynn Rogala. She's phenomenal. And I'm going to give you a way that you can also learn from her, actually totally free and incredibly magical. So she is a woman who I met earlier in 2022 when I joined a program called the Mystery Room. Now, this is where the vulnerability really kicks in, right? It's like, here I am, a business coach, a professional development coach, a career coach, a woman who helps corporate badasses get promoted to the C-suite. And I'm talking to you about joining a program called the Mystery Room. Now, here's the interesting thing. This was a 6-month program. And literally it just said, so I knew the woman who ran it, first of all, and I trusted in her and I really believed in her. And I had a lot of faith in her and basically any product that she offered. But she presented this as a 5-month experiment. It's like, I don't really know what's going to happen. I don't know what we're going to do, but welcome to the Mystery Room and pay me $20,000. Like, what? I'm in. I just was in. I was like, yes, this is exactly what I need. And fast forward, I met Lynn in this group. And Lynn, and this is the way that you need to get connected with her, is that she does these moon readings. So they're completely free. All you have to do is be on her email list, and we'll link to her email list in the show notes. And every new moon and every full moon, she reads oracle cards for you, and then you process them at will, right? It's a self-directed program, but really she holds the magical container, the magical space for whatever types of cards that you pull. And I encourage you, if you're listening to this episode and you're already like, this is way too much woo for me, I really encourage you to keep listening if you're open to it. And also fast forward to the end, because I'm going to give you super practical ways that you can use magic in your career. Like hands down, and it's going to open everything up for you. So stick with me. All right. Now, I ended up hiring her as my magic coach. Now, let's go to where I'm at on my magical journey, which is, I'm sure you must feel this way, that you are special, right? That sometimes magic occurs in your life. Like you just know things. You just are able to make things happen magically. I guarantee if you are listening to this podcast that you have that inside you. And I've always been that person. I've had certain instances in my life that I didn't really understand why they worked as well as they did, but they did. And then I also had a lot, probably more like 90% of my life, trying to recreate those instances and failing, right? So my whole story about meeting my husband is completely magical. Like I was traveling through India. Well, I did a palm reading. He told me when he did my palm reading that I was going to marry somebody that I had already met. I'm like, no, because if I was going to marry somebody I already met, then I would have already married them. And then fast forward to me just waking up one day and saying, oh, I want to go back to the States. I'm ready to go back for no reason because I had a one-way ticket. So I could have gone back at any time. 2 days later, I meet my husband, who, by the way, I actually already knew. But then that's when we started dating, and then the rest is history. And now we've been married and together for over 10 years. And it's amazing, but it's totally magical. And so then I would have these magical moments happen to me, and I wouldn't know how to recreate them, and that would cause a lot of suffering. So I say, oh, that's really nice that happened, but I don't really know what that is. So I decided to double down on my magic and really talk to a woman that understood magic at a different level than I did, right? That I had this magical intuition, but I didn't really know how to use my magic. So the first 6 months working with Lynn are all about understanding what that magic is and then learning to do it on purpose, right? So that's what the last 6 months have been for me. So the first thing that she does when she works with somebody is try and identify what your magic is so that you have an anchor point. So for me in my work, this would be like your leadership style. And in the beginning, when you first start working with me, one of the very first things that we do is identify what your leadership style is, right? So before you change anything, before you mix it up, we just identify what that leadership style is. And then we try and use that leadership style on purpose. That's basically what we're doing. I didn't know it was magic, but that's kind of what it is. And so that's something that I did with her. And we identified in the beginning that my magic was my home magic, HOME, home. And it first came up because I was doing oracle readings. And if you're not familiar, actually, I will link to a oracle deck that I absolutely love. Anyway, so that you can kind of learn more about this. But Long story short, Oracle is basically different than tarot in that tarot, I feel, is much more prescriptive and you kind of have to have a deeper knowledge of the cards. Oracle is really like draw a card and do whatever you want with it, right? It's just up to interpretation. You can't do it wrong. They're inspirational cards. They're meant to guide you, to inspire you, to point you in a right direction. This is what I love about them. I actually buy them for all of my coaching clients, all of my one-on-one clients get an Oracle deck when they sign up with me because it's that important to me now. And this wasn't always the case. This is something that I've been introducing more recently. So, anyway, so we identified that my magic was home magic. And this came up because I drew it several times in different Oracle readings. And then also, it's just true. So basically for me, my sweet spot is that I can make any space feel like home. And when I used to perform on really big stages, that would be referred to as you can make 1,000-seat theater feel like you're talking one-on-one to a person. And I've always felt that way. I've always, as a core value, I have always made sure that people felt at home. I'm very inclusive. I want you to feel like you can take your shoes off. I want it to feel like it's my living room. I want you to know who I am. I want you to feel welcome. And so then as I started creating these coaching communities, that was like 100% my goal was to create this home environment. And so the last 6 months for me have been really honing in on my quote unquote home magic. And for you, I really think an incredibly accessible point is really just thinking about your leadership style and how you can begin to do this on purpose, right? So that's like a DIY trick that you can do. And I actually have a podcast episode that I have to dig out because I think it was from a few years ago about identifying your leadership style. And I know we talk about it all the time inside the leadership table. So if you're interested, come on in and join our community because it's the best community on the planet, guaranteed. And you're going to get a promotion and a raise just from joining, right? So isn't it magical and amazing? All right. Now, the other thing is that I have learned recently, because once you open up the Pandora's box of magic, then more magic comes to you, is I took a brand archetype quiz by Jennifer Kim, and I'm also going to link to that in the show notes because even if you're a corporate badass, you can still take this quiz. It's mostly geared towards entrepreneurs, but it tells you what your specific brand is. And if I had guessed my brand, looking at her list of 12 brand archetypes, I would have guessed that I was more on the creative side. And when I took the quiz, that is number 3. That was what came up for me, because I do think that if I was trying to quote unquote recreate my magic and do my magic on purpose, I would probably hone in on the creative, right? So this was before I hired a magic coach, but I would hone in on the creative side and I'd really say, that's my sweet spot. That's what I'm great at, right? That's what I'm really, really good at. But once I took this quiz, I came up as what she calls the alchemist, not the creative. Let me read to you what the alchemist is. It says, this brand archetype relies in connection with self and source from an internal place rather than gaining information from external sources, tuning ordinary products into gold as a result. The alchemist often flies solo as they walk the path of the mystique, using the sight as their primary knowledge source. They may appear mysterious because of their intuition and belief in realities beyond the physical world. They have an intimate knowledge of how the world or universe works even before the rest of us. This is key. I share that with you because it's the reason I'm recording this episode, because I need to be able to share with you that I get it, right? That I have this magical intuitive resource. It's actually my magic. It is who I am. And over the past few months, I have learned how to create this magic on purpose, right? I've learned to be able to hone in on that. So the first thing that I want to share with you in terms of using your own magic is this idea of getting out of your own way, of realizing that magic is actually bigger than us And you could call it God, source, universe, whatever that is. But ultimately, when we're talking about using magic on purpose, we're actually doing something bigger than we could even do on our own. And so I'm going to give you 3 examples of famous people who have done this really beautiful. So you can think of these as all magicians, and they are. And probably when I say their names, you're going to be like, yep, yep, yep. Like they defy possibility, right? So the 3 people that obviously come to mind in my mind, and please let me know who you think is a magician, because I am doing the Summer of Magic. It just started and I want to hear from you. I want to share this information. I want people to know how to magically create results in their life and to get titles and more money, but really bigger and better things than they ever even imagined possible. So the 3 people are Taylor Swift, Oprah, and Lady Gaga. So I just made this up. I'm like, these 3 women came to mind, and I'm going to tell you why I think that they're magical and also how they had to get out of their own way in order to tap into their magic. So Taylor Swift is a perfect example. If you see her perform, it feels like she's in your living room. It feels like she's the girl next door. It feels like she's somebody that you know intimately and personally, yet she is one of the biggest superstars in the world, and she gets paid more than anybody else, right? Like she's huge. So she is a superstar, yet you feel like you kind of know her. How is that possible? Magic. She wasn't always that way. She had to learn to get out of her own way, to hone in on her magic. The second person is Oprah. And Oprah is one of those women that defies possibility, right? Defies what is humanly possible in this world, for sure. And she is somebody who had very specific intentions, knew exactly what she wanted, had a challenging journey through her entire life, right? She has an incredible story. And then at some point, she had to realize that her magic was bigger than her. And she had to learn to get out of her own way, to pull back, to sort of say, hey, what's possible here? And the third person is Lady Gaga. And back when I was in the mystery room, I had to identify with an archetype of my choice. And the first woman that came to mind in my head was Lady Gaga. And I was very confused by this because I would never dress like Lady Gaga. I think she's really great, but I was like, I don't know. Like, she's not like me at all. Like, you would not put our faces together and say that they're the same. And then when I started Googling her and reading about her story, a large reason that she became as big and as famous as she is because of her connection with her fans. And there's a whole turning point in her journey about how she just literally went to the streets. And I think some of this is, through Instagram, right? She would post with her fans and she would share about her journey, and she just became a real human being. And that really resonated with me. I was like, that is it. Right? So for me, it's all about making other people feel at home, taking these really incredible, powerful women and bringing out their badassery and letting everybody else in the world see that, right? That is my sweet spot. This is what I do so well. And as an alchemist, as I now know, I can play with that. So not only is my intuition strong, but when I follow that intuition, then I can create really great things. And as I look back on the last year, the last lifetime, when I would have these magical moments, and I would say that they happened because of creativity, not because of magic, not because of alchemy. I would say that was because of my creative source. I literally could never recreate it, right? That was like what I was sharing with you. My cause of suffering is I was like, I don't know how to use this. I don't know what this is, this special sauce. So then I would just let it go and be like, well, now I'm back to square one again, right? I don't know what to do. Anyway, once I have learned through working with my coach, Lynn, that I have magic, what that magic is, and then started practicing using that on purpose, then I was able to kind of recreate it. And I was like, wow, I did that thing and it worked. Great example. here's the thing that I did just last week, which is why I was like, oh, I have to start the Summer of Magic today. Today is the day. I did the summer solstice reading with Lynn, and I pulled a card that said eucalyptus, which is a tree that we have in California and where I live all over the place. I drew this card and I told Lynn when I got it, I said, oh my gosh, this is perfect. I should go to a eucalyptus field and feel the trees and blah, blah, blah. And so then fast forward to having a really terrible day. I mean, like so bad. Like I lost a check. I had an argument with my husband about not losing the check. My whole vibe was off. It was terrible. I just thought, man. And I took a deep breath and I asked myself what I needed to do, right? Because I was in a funk and I needed to break out of this funk. And so I was like, you know what? I need to tap into my magic. That was literally the directive. I need to tap into my magic. And so I Googled eucalyptus trees near me. It said 4-minute drive at UC Berkeley campus. There's a eucalyptus grove. I drove over there because I was already in my car. I drove over there. I get out and there's these red cords tied around the trees all throughout the eucalyptus grove. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, is it off limits? Oh, wow. The trees are still pretty and everything. And I go up to the red strings and this guy comes up to me and he's a younger man and he's like, hey, how's it going? And he starts talking to me and he said, I was just setting up a leadership exercise for my students, basically. And he just starts telling me what he's doing. And I'm like, okay, I just came out here to walk around. Like, great. And I said, well, am I allowed to walk in there? And he's like, of course. And he said that he was doing a trust exercise. So basically his students who are in this leadership class at UC Berkeley were going to come there and they would have to be blindfolded and follow the red string around the eucalyptus trees. So of course I asked him, hey, can I do it? And he said, well, of course. And so I did it. I closed my eyes and walked through the eucalyptus grove. So not only did I get to go to the eucalyptus grove and breathe in all the magic, I got to connect with this beautiful human being teaching a leadership course. And I got to trust myself. I got to do a trust exercise. And it was scary, right? You're walking on eucalyptus leaves, uneven ground. You have your eyes closed. You're trusting. You're moving through. It was like the best meditation. After that, I felt 1,000,000 times better. Everything clicked into place for the whole rest of the day, for the whole rest of the week. Everything was great. That is an example of me using my magic on purpose. So I made the declaration to stop the funk and to move into a better state. And then I was like, well, what do? I go to a eucalyptus grove, because the cards told me to. Right? And that's why these oracle cards are so valuable, because they can point you in directions that you can't quite see. That's been another clue for me using my magic over the last 6 months. So I already touched on this idea of getting out of our own way. And then I just want to expand on that with the ways that I think you can begin to use your magic as a corporate badass and start to attract opportunities, start to put yourself in the right rooms, start to figure out what you can say no to, and more importantly, be able to use your magic on your own terms. And there are 3 very specific things that come to mind. So before I get into that, I really want to point you to my Summer of Magic episode from 2022. I want you to go back and listen to that episode where I talk about the 5 magical ingredients to set you up for your next promotion. So this is where I was at last year. These are the foundational ingredients to get you on your path towards success. And if you don't understand these foundational ingredients, what you're going to be doing is playing with magic outside of your league. Like, you're still going to feel like it's beyond your control because you haven't laid that foundation. So please go back to last year's episode. We'll link to it in the show notes. And this is just so key and so important. And every single woman who comes into my leadership table program learns and masters these foundational keys. And then when they advance into one-on-one coaching with me, we're learning basically how to use their magic on purpose. So these 3 concepts, these 3 ideas that I'm going to share with you now are what I teach my one-on-one clients to do, because they understand the foundational principles, they've practiced it, and now we're learning to use our magic on purpose. And the 3 ingredients for them at that next level are intention, belonging, and curiosity. If you do these 3 things, you will essentially be using your magic on purpose. This is how I know, combined with the 5 ingredients that I teach in terms of my executive promotion process, add to that on top of it, these 3 things. If you start doing this, you are going to have more prosperity, more inclusion, more like, oh my God, Stacy, you're never going to believe what happened. But of course, I'm going to believe what happened because you used my magical ingredients to make it happen. You're going to be able to create more success in your life if you use intention, belonging, and curiosity. I'm going to break these down for you. So intention, when we're talking about Taylor Swift, Lady Gaga, Oprah, they knew what they wanted, right? There's no question. They knew they wanted to be stars, that they wanted to sing, that they wanted to help other people, that they wanted to have a national TV network. I think Oprah knew that all along, right? They had intention. That's part of your long-term career vision. You have to have intention. You have to have clarity. You have to know the impact that you want to be making. You have to have intention. The second piece, which is belonging. When you start to believe that you belong, you will create what I call a peer-to-peer relationship with everyone. You stop putting your boss on a pedestal, your boss's boss's boss on a pedestal. Yes, there are office politics in play, and they're on a pedestal on purpose because they want to put you beneath them. But if you understand that you inherently belong, that you are an equal, then you're going to be able to walk into a 15-minute ally meeting with your CEO and talk to your CEO peer to peer. I had a woman who, as part of the Summer of Magic, and I'm going to completely celebrate her, who is in my one-on-one coaching program, who just celebrated a huge job opportunity that she created from this place of belonging. So when the CEO, as she was interviewing, offered things like, hey, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to bring you out to our headquarters. Instead of sitting back and waiting for him to schedule that and make that happen and, oh, he'll get back to me, I said, no, just email him back and say, yes, can I reach out to your assistant and get that scheduled? She did it. You can only do that if you feel that you belong. Take people for what they say. If somebody says, hey, I want to bring you into this conversation, or I want you to give this talk, say yes, because you belong. You can make it your own. It doesn't mean that you have to say yes to every single thing, but start from that place of belonging, that you have choice, that you have agency, that you are in charge, and that no human being is better or more valuable than us. The entire corporate culture is set up so that we feel less valuable, right? This is why the power of belonging is so important in this magical process. And the third and final step is curiosity. Asking good questions, being willing to not have the answers, staying in curiosity, being curious for yourself about what's possible. I share the story about John Gray endorsing my book, Promotions Made Easy. And he said, no, his assistant, his gatekeeper said no to me. And I was like, I wonder what it would take to get him to say yes. That's it. I didn't say I need him to say yes. I want him to say yes. I'm going to have to make him say yes. I said, I wonder what it would take to get him to say yes. I stayed curious, right? When you're looking at your long-term career vision and setting that intention, being willing to not know exactly how it's going to play out. That is the power of getting out of your own way, putting the magical pieces into place so that you can throw your hands up, step aside, and let the magic happen. right? That is my goal for Summer of Magic 2023 is to get out of my own way and let the magic happen. My goal for the summer is to celebrate 108 promotions this summer. So if you are listening to this podcast and you get promoted this summer, if you get a new role this summer, if a friend or a colleague, somebody that you love, somebody that you want to celebrate as well, gets that promotion, gets that new job opportunity, DM me, hashtag Summer of Magic 2023. Reach out to me in any way possible. I respond to all my own emails, all my own DMs. I would absolutely love, love, love to hear from you and to celebrate you. You can do it on an even bigger scale and celebrate by giving me a review. If this podcast has helped you get a promotion or land a new job opportunity, celebrate publicly. That is my next level goal. So last year with the Summer of Magic, I was thinking small, right? I was like, I wonder how many promotions we could get in a summer in my teeny tiny community. Inside the leadership table, 60 women, I wonder what could happen. And we blew it out of the water. We had 13 promotions in 6 weeks. And I was like, whoa, this is magic, right? This is bigger than me. These pieces came into place. And now I am opening that up to the greater world, to the greater community and saying, hey, how much magic can we create together as a community? Definitely get inside the leadership table if you're not already in there. I'm going to be doing special trainings throughout the summer as well, both publicly and for my members inside of my community. It is lifetime access. So if you've been thinking about joining, just join now. Like, stop it. Stop waiting. Start getting your foundation in place so that you can start using your own personal magic on purpose. Oh man, I actually feel pretty good. I was feeling vulnerable at the beginning of recording this, and now I'm just on fire. That, my friends, is the power of magic. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Before you go, I have a question for you. Do you know how close you are to your next promotion? Really? Not what your boss has told you, not what you even believe to be true, but have you actually taken the time to sit down, take an assessment, review the 5 categories that it takes to get promoted into senior executive leadership positions and decided where you fall in each category and given yourself a ranking on a scale of 1 to 10 of how close you are to getting your next promotion? Have you done this? Well, now's your chance. If that feels interesting to you and you're like, hey, I want to know exactly how close I might actually be or how far away you might be and what it's going to take to get you even closer, then I invite you to take my promotability quiz. This is a quiz that I put together with practical tips that actually tell you where you're lacking and where you're winning. What are the areas that you actually need to improve and not necessarily what your boss is telling you all the time so that you can take concrete steps towards landing that next promotion and changing the face of the leadership table. Go to yourpromotabilityscore.com to take your free assessment today. Yourpromotabilityscore.com and let me know how it goes.